If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Before Epstein was the Franklin cover-up. Before that, the Finders. And long before that, the Cleveland Street Scandal. Pedogate Primer is a concise intro and overview of a growing child abuse epidemic worldwide. It features shocking instances of institutionalized and organizational pedophilia throughout history. Churches, cults, the world of arts and entertainment, the government, NGOs, charities, and major corporations are all complicit or culprits in many instances. Pedogate Primer delves into material that for many may seem like the stuff of conspiracy theories. For this reason, the book draws on academic resources, declassified documents, and other reliable sources, and steers clear of conjecture. Such shocking true stories need no embellishment.
Emailrevealer.com. People ask me all the time, hey Ed, are you still a private investigator? I sure am. Go to emailrevealer.com. We handle adoption investigations, infidelity investigations, where you give us your spouse's email address. We trace it back to online dating websites, catch them cheating online. Email tracing, locate or identify somebody from as little as an anonymous email address. Someone owe you money? Back child support? We can find that deadbeat, locate his hidden assets, locate his hidden bank accounts, find his current place of employment, and even assist you in obtaining a judgment and recover that judgment for you. Emailrevealer.com. Digital forensics, computer forensics, cell phone forensics, recover deleted text messages. Create a report that you can use in court. Emailrevealer.com, 800-572-9762. The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting through my website, emailrevealer.com. Or you can give me a call at 800-572-9762. Turns out, by the way, it's becoming a habit here that I just show up right here at the studio like 2 minutes before airtime. But luckily tonight, it's all the stuff I'm reporting to you is all stuff I'm personally involved in. So, I don't really need a lot of notes or anything, a lot of preparation. Just got to explain what's going on. But first of all, the phone number, 800-572-9762, in order to reach me for PI work, or if you want to buy advertising time on the radio. It turns out that for at least a little while here, when you have an 800 number, a toll-free number, it rings to a regular phone number. You get the 800 number from the phone company or a third-party service, and then you have to give them a number where you want it to ring to, where you pick up the phone and talk to the people who call you up. And it turns out that someone changed my ring to number sometime within the last 7 months. It can't be that long. It can only be like a couple of months, because I get a ton of calls every day. So a lot of people know the number that it rings to, and they call that number directly. People that have worked with me before, or attorneys and stuff like that I've been clients for years. So I didn't notice like a big drop in phone calls coming in. But as soon as we fixed that, I noticed a huge increase in calls coming in. So getting a little bit swamped with work here this past week, which is always good news, I guess. So also, too, if you like our show, check out our Patreon. Now, there's a big deal going on with the Patreon right now, because I was involved in, I've been involved in a little bit of controversy lately. And I even kind of mentioned it previously. But I got my hands on a bunch of photographs of Stephen Avery, who was convicted of murder, and then in Making a Murderer, that Netflix documentary. He murdered that photographer. And so a little background on this. For years, I've been hearing some stories about Avery and some behaviors of his, both in his personal life with his family and also in prison. Okay, I've had people come to me that did time with Avery in prison and make some allegations against him, Stephen Avery. Now, I've been holding back on this. I haven't reported it because the people who are reporting it to me not only are convicts, but they're also convicts with fraud and deception in their convictions, which is a big difference. If someone's a burglar or a car thief or a drug dealer, they're still a reliable witness. But once you have a witness who's has a conviction involving fraud, probation violations that include fraud and deception, forgery, that kind of stuff, then they're held to a higher standard of believability, of credibility. So the witness who's come to me has that threshold to overcome. So I haven't reported on his allegations directly, but I have proven that he has served time in the same prison as Avery. So what he claims to have eyewitnessed is possible. It's not like it's a totally offhand allegation, but I haven't reported on that. There's similar accusations of Avery in his personal life and with his family. Okay, rape, molestation, abuse. Okay, even he had even gotten caught with, he had chains and all kind of stuff, S&M type of material in his possession when he was arrested. So just in the past 48 hours, these pictures have surfaced of Avery in his underwear, in one photo at least, with his niece and with his daughter when they were underage. And there's even a text message that describes one of the teenage girls returning home with hickeys after visiting Avery. So the pictures are quite graphic, and you can find them almost exclusively at the Opperman Report Patreon. You can go there, and it's in the free section, in the public section. You don't have to pay anything. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to become a member. Just Google Opperman Report Patreon. It'll come right up, and it's pretty much the latest post that's up there. So you can do that. But if you want, hey, Ed, I have an hour on you tonight. It's only midnight. Okay. Oh, that's right. The daylight savings time. Yeah, right. I get that. Okay. So check out the Patreon. And if you want to support the show, you could sign up. There's plenty of exclusive content on the Patreon there, too. As a matter of fact, the main topic we're going to be talking about tonight, which is the Hunter Biden laptop, which is, according to some Trump supporters out there, I never talk about. Ed, why don't you ever report on the Hunter Biden laptop? How come you never say a word of that? Oh, it's because you're a Biden supporter and you hate Trump and you have Trump derangement syndrome. Well, the fact is, I've done quite a bit of reporting on the Hunter Biden laptop, and I actually have some personal firsthand involvement and experience in this. And I have exclusive reporting. There's exclusive reporting that you could find once again in the Patreon in the paid section with Bradley Birkenfeld, who's the author of Lucifer's Banker, who has a firsthand personal direct involvement with the Hunter Biden chain of custody, the laptop chain of custody, that I think he's only said on my show. We should make that show public and free. Maybe next week or maybe during the week I'll do that. We'll put in the free section some more people. Because what happened is in the past 24 hours, the New York Times has confirmed my reporting on the Hunter Biden laptop, the legitimacy of it, which I've been aware of for a long time, since way at the beginning. We also have an exclusive, almost like a press conference with the fellow, I forget his name, like John Mack or something like that. I forget his name, who was the computer repairman who ultimately wound up with the laptop and made a police report, made an FBI report, and then went to the press. Turns out he was a big Trump supporter, big Giuliani supporter, and had contact with Giuliani's attorney, Costello. And we have an exclusive. What happened was a bunch of reporters descended on his computer repair shop, and he said, "Okay, fine, 4 or 5 of you guys can come in, and we'll have a little question and answer period, but then that's it." So they went in there and they recorded this. It wasn't on the news, it wasn't on TV, it wasn't anywhere. This is pretty much an exclusive recording that only we have. I tell you. Okay, it's really intense. These reporters are hammering him with tough questions. Sometimes he'll answer, but whenever they get into the chain of custody of the laptop or the hard drive and all that, then it's no comment, okay, which is very, very suspicious. Now, one of the gentlemen there, one of the fellows, the people in that press conference contacted me, and he says, "Ed, this is blockbuster material. We got to get this out there. Can you circulate it for us?" And I did immediately. I took it, I put it in the Patreon section, in the free Patreon section at Opperman Report Patreon. So there's that. And then the third topic we're going to be talking about tonight is the Playboy Mansion. There's a new Playboy Mansion, Hugh Hefner series. I believe it's on Netflix. It's on a documentary series out there. And everybody's all in a hubbub and an uproar about this new material that's all been reported out there. Well, listen, there's nothing new on there that I don't know. We had a guest on the show not long ago about growing up in the mansion. Half of that stuff we talked about on the air, but we talked about even more off the air, and hopefully I'll be getting to some of that tonight, because we had a potential lawsuit there going with some other fellows and people who were involved in the mansion that suffered at the hands of the people running the Playboy industry there. Okay, but our main topic tonight is the Hunter Biden laptop. Now, I've told this story a couple of times. I told it on TrueAnon, and it was probably the best telling of this story, because it was very humorous and a lot of joking around, and I had the story fresh in my head. I was living it live at the time. So you can find that out if you just Google Ed Opperman Hunter Biden laptop. By the way, if you just Google Ed Opperman Hunter Biden laptop, a lot of stuff comes up. I've been talking about this for a long time. It's not like Ed, you never talk about the Hunter Biden laptop. Why don't you never talk about this? Just got to learn how to use Google. You could find it. Okay. So I told the story on TrueAnon, which is the fourth largest podcast on Patreon. Okay, it's a huge audience. And then I also told it on the Sean Atwood YouTube channel. And right before, and Sean Atwood, he was kind of confused. He didn't understand what the topic was even going to be. He thought I came on the show to talk about John Benet Ramsey. So even though I explained to his booker, his producer, exactly what the whole story was, and then I even gave him the link to TrueAnon. I was getting contacted all over the place after that TrueAnon interview. A lot of people think it's the funniest, most entertaining interview on TrueAnon, which is a very popular podcast. But then, right before the interview with Sean Atwood, his producer tells him, "Well, take it easy on Trump, Ed. Don't, take it easy on Trump." So, and then after the interview, there was a lot of negative remarks in the chat there, the comments about me being a Jew, and all this kind of crazy stuff, By the way, I'm not Jewish, not that I have anything wrong with that. But there's a lot of anti-Semitism in the fellow's chat room there. And then he took it down. He took the interview down about a month later. And he claimed that he was having a lot of problems with his YouTube channel. I believe his show is based on YouTube mostly, which, if I have time, I'll get into some YouTube. Oh, by the way, this is probably the first time you're hearing a new show on YouTube in a couple of months. And that's because, once again, YouTube got a bunch of strikes over there, and they haven't been uploading my shows. But the shows have been uploading as normal. They've been going out over AM/FM radio, 150 cities, Nevada, California, Utah, East Coast and West Coast of Florida, on many frequencies in over 150 cities. So the show hasn't had a hiccup, okay? Plus we go up on Spreaker and Apple Plays and all that kind of stuff, every podcast catcher out there, iHeartRadio, iTunes. And there hasn't been a hiccup with any of those shows either. The only problem we have is the archives that get uploaded to YouTube about an hour or two after the show goes live. And, of course, you don't get any of the Patreon content there on YouTube. So if you're hearing the show on YouTube, we haven't missed the show. Don't say, "Oh, Ed, we're so happy to have you back," because I've never left. It's YouTube that has left. Okay, and I get no benefit from YouTube whatsoever, nothing but complaints and negative comments. So if you would like the show and you want to support the show, please go to Spreaker.com. You can sign up for free, listen to the show for free. There's a chat room with a lot of chatters in there and commenters that are usually polite and intelligent, by the way, too. And there's also, you get an email notification when I put up new content. That's Spreaker.com. So what's the Hunter Biden laptop story, and what is my involvement? Ed, what's going on? Well, let me tell you. It starts out with John Benet Ramsey. Okay, I was a fan of I was interested. I had a lot of interest in the John Benet Ramsey story. The little girl in Boulder, Colorado, that was found dead on Christmas Eve. We're already 17 minutes in. I might have to do 2 hours today, guys. Okay, because I don't even have time to tell you what's coming up next. In fact, I don't even know what's coming up next. Okay. So, like a lot of people, I became fascinated with the John Benet Ramsey case in real time. And for those of you who are fascinated by the case as much as I am, about the story of this little girl who was murdered, alleged kidnapping note, ransom note, all that stuff, there was a character that appeared in that story named John Mark Carr. And I believe he was living in Thailand. And he started trolling some folks who had gone to the police claiming that he was involved in the death of John Benet Ramsey. And they actually, Boulder, Colorado, actually sent agents to Thailand where he was about to get a sex change operation. He was working as a nanny over there and was about to get a sex change. And they extradited him back to the United States where he had child pornography charges. Now, he was charged with those charges, but he was never convicted of them because, get this, according to the official story, the laptop with the child pornography on it, the evidence of his crime, was sold at a yard sale. Okay, for some reason these cops thought that we got some evidence here, but hey, we can make $50 off this laptop, so let's just sell it. We won't be able to use it in court, but hey, we need the money. Okay, something along those lines. I don't know what the exact official story is, but the story goes along those lines. So what happened was I did some quick research on John Mark Carr, and I found some Usenet postings. This is way back in the 90s. So it wasn't like it is today where something hits the news, and a lot of people have the knowledge to locate people's social media accounts and their hidden emails and their comments on Reddit like you can today. Back then, this wasn't that common, but my specialty was internet investigations, being a digital forensic investigator. And since one of my specialties was tracing emails and locating and identifying people from anonymous email accounts and online defamation lawsuits and things like that, I was able to dig up some information online about John Mark Carr. And what I found was he was posting on Usenet, which was like an internet message board, one of the earliest ones. And they had topics like alt, teen, preteens, alt, teenagers and stuff like that. And he was posting in these groups because he had an interest in little girls, this character. And he was posting things on there, encouraging young girls, preteen girls, to contact him so he could counsel them with Christian counseling. So I accumulated all this information, and I put it together in a report, but I had some personal issues going on at the time. I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was my divorce. And I just sent it over to some friends of mine in the media who then ran with it and published it. And until this day, actually, without giving me any credit whatsoever, just did a whole nother interview with this character Carr just a few years ago. But I'm not bitter about these things. If I was, you'd know it. But since that time, I've always kept my eye on John Mark Carr, and every now and then I'll just, I'll do a simple Google search, or I'll do a little locate on him, find out where he is, what's he's up to, does he have any new criminal charges, where he's staying, has he registered, and all that kind of stuff, And so I was doing this, and there's a lot of people I keep an eye on. Okay, a lot of times for a client, I'll be working for a client, and who has a problem with somebody. And I'll take steps to resolve that problem. And then the guy who's the problem, I'll keep an eye on him for free, for years. Because, just to make sure that my client doesn't have any future problems with this guy. We know where he is. We know he's on probation, parole, what's going on with him. So if he does pop back up on my radar, I can warn the client and perhaps get another retainer for more work. So there's a lot of reasons why you do these things. So in this case, I just happen to be looking into John Mark Carr, and I see a story where he had a relationship with a young lady, and she was so afraid of him that she got a restraining order against him. And what she said in the restraining order was that he was trying to recruit her to help him kidnap a bunch of little JonBenet Ramsey lookalikes, that he would have his own little JonBenet Ramsey lookalike cult, all worshiping him. So I went about locating this woman because I wanted to interview her. A couple of years go by. I found her Facebook page. A couple of years go by, and she finally responds to me and says, I never use this account. I never use this page. But yeah, I'd love to do an interview with you. Let me tell you what happened here. So I knew right away that I had to get this recorded immediately, because this is the kind of person that, you kind of, they were kind of out there, And so we do the interview, and she explains the whole thing about how she met John Mark Carr. Remember, by the way, this is a story about Hunter Biden's laptop, okay? So keep that in mind. I know, it's a convoluted story, okay? Now, she starts telling me how she knew John Mark Carr when she was 8 or 9 years old. He was an assistant teacher at this Catholic school where she went to in San Francisco. So all this is a recording. All this is recorded. It's in the Opera Report Patreon section. Her name is Samantha Spiegel. A very nice young lady. I met her sister, too, as well. I interviewed her sister, too, as well. They have a lot of back story on that, too. I also did an interview with Dan O'Hanks, where we talked about all this, too, and John Mark Carr is mentioned in the title. Dan O'Hanks is another private investigator, very renowned career, a very well-known guy, and he was aware of this whole situation, too, with Samantha Spiegel, and we talk about it a bit on the air. During this interview, toward the end of the interview, Samantha Spiegel blurts out, and I had an abusive S&M relationship with Dr. Keith Abloh, the Fox News contributor. And I said, whoa, hold on there. Wait a minute, have you ever said this before in the public, in the media? No, this is the first time I'm telling anybody. She says, okay, wait a minute. And I don't need any lawsuits with, Keith Abloh suing me for defamation. So I bleeped it out. We bleeped it out of the official version. Get this, okay? Bleeped out his name. But after the interview, I said, listen, if what you're telling me is true, we have an incredible lawsuit against Dr. Keith Abloh. This is malpractice. Some of the things she described to me, which I have all documented, okay? We went back and forth about this. She wanted to do it. She didn't want to do it until ultimately around 2015, I hear back from her. She's ready to move ahead. I go back to the attorney who was originally interested in taking the case, but he was involved in a whole Stormy Daniels thing, and he was testifying before Congress with Michael Cohen and SDNY, and it was just too much to get back into and work on this case here. So we moved on with our lives. Ultimately, then, she came back to me again. I found her another attorney, and in the interim of all this, I submitted a report to the Board of Psychological Examiners up there in Massachusetts, and we were able to get Dr. Keith Abloh's license revoked. He could no longer practice at the time. Maybe he's got it back now. I don't know. But he was no longer allowed to practice psychiatry on patients and prescribe drugs, all that kind of stuff. Now, why am I telling you this? Because everyone knows the story about Hunter Biden's laptop. And the story that they know, the official story, okay, the one that the New York Times is telling you that they can confirm, is that Hunter Biden dropped off his laptop to this computer repair place. And the computer repair guy was looking through, and he happened to notice some naughty pictures on there and stuff like that. And when he contacted the FBI, because also in this whole convoluted story, Hunter Biden never went back to retrieve his laptop. He just dropped it off, left it there. And this guy, for some reason, and I do a lot of digital forensic computer hard drive data retrieval. And you don't look at this stuff unless you're hired to look through all this. You know, it's a lot of material on there to even want to look on there and see what's on there. So the whole story has a lot of holes in it. So that's the official story. Hunter Biden dropped off his computer. There was water damage and some laptops, some other material there. Never went back to pick it up. For some reason, this guy went through everything with a fine-tooth comb, found some incriminating information, and he reported it to the FBI. FBI never got back to him. Then he went to the press through Giuliani's team. Okay? That's the official story. So I start hearing a story. That there's a second laptop. What, Ed, a second laptop? What are you talking about? There's two laptops? Hunter Biden left behind two laptops? And a second laptop somehow wound up in the possession of the Drug Enforcement Administration. Ed, what's going on here now? How did the DEA get involved in this story, Ed? And what does this have to do with John Benet Ramsey? All right. Well, believe it or not, you know, we uncovered a lot of material about Dr. Keith Abloh. And it seems like a lot of his behaviors are very similar to the interests and behaviors that are alleged of Mr. Hunter Biden. Okay? Which I believe at this point are pretty well documented as well. Now, for some reason, and I don't think anybody knows why, Hunter Biden went to live with Dr. Keith Abloh in Dr. Keith Abloh's house. Now, this is always something that strikes me. Hunter Biden's got more money raining down on his head, man. And the Chinese government gave him like $50 million to create a computer company to build computers, and he couldn't even do that. Man, he probably hired a couple of kids to go in, hey, put these computers together, because the whole money, the company goes bankrupt. They lose all the money. He and John Kerry's son had formed a company together. They were going around the world when his father was vice president, and John Kerry's son his father was Secretary of State. And they went around the world with their bags of open cash just being poured into their coffers there, their consulting company, all this money. Not to mention all kind of Ukraine shenanigans, right? Which is very well reported in the news. But this part here about Dr. Keith Abloh, for some reason, by the way, Dr. Keith Abloh, remember, was a Fox News contributor. Okay? That's how he met my client, my former client, Samantha Spiegel. Because Fox News interviewed her about the same thing I did. Hey, what's going on with this restraining order you got there against this John Mark Carr character? And like a day later, she gets a phone call from Dr. Keith Abloh. Now, she thinks Dr. Keith Abloh is there to counsel her because she's been through trauma. So she's, oh my goodness, Dr. Abloh, thank you so much. And she describes, I can't quote the exact thing, but the first thing he said to her was something along the lines of, are you a dirty little whore? Okay? Now, in my report, there's a lot of incredible material and negative stuff that I don't want to go through tonight on the radio. You know, it's a family show. Okay. But for some reason, Hunter Biden, with all this money He could get an Airbnb. He could live in the equivalent of the Waldorf Astoria or the best hotel in Massachusetts. He could rent a home for himself for 3 months and, executive housing, all this kind of stuff. But for some reason, he went to live with Dr. Keith Abloh. Now, what happened is, now I hear a story. I get wind of a story. And this story was published. You can Google it and find it, the mysterious second Hunter Biden laptop. Now, how this story goes is there was a fellow named Brad Birkenfeld who wrote a book called Lucifer's Banker. Now, Brad Birkenfeld used to run Swiss bank accounts. And he got into some problems and hit the jackpot there, had a little problem there, and had to make a deal. And he rolled over on a bunch of people evading their taxes through Swiss banking. And he made a huge, either it was like 125 million or 400 million in rewards from the IRS. Because they offer you rewards and compensation for turning on other people. So he writes this book. And there's a book launch party. Now, who's at that book launch party? Some of the usual characters. And one of the guys there is Bo Dietl. Now, I've known Bo Dietl since I was a kid in New York City. I think I met him when I was like 18, 19 years old. I've hired him. He's worked for me. We hung out at the Doral, arm wrestling, drinking all night, So I have a history with Bo. He has a background as a private investigator, but he's really involved with politics. Bernie Kerik is there. You might have seen Bernie Kerik on the day January 6th. He was very highly involved. And as a matter of fact, he put up some personal money for the war room that was run out of a hotel there in Washington, D.C. for January 6th insurrection. Now, Rudy Giuliani was at this book launch party. John Kirikawa, I'm not pronouncing his name correctly, but he's a CIA whistleblower that went to prison. He's been on this show. And in fact, Barrett Brown was just talking about him just 2 weeks ago when he did an appearance on the show. Might have been last week, as a matter of fact. And me and Barrett Brown had some conversations off the air about all this. Now, I'm going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119. If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents. They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be. because the team at kmdlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to kmdlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law.
Before Epstein was the Franklin cover-up. Before that, the Finders. And long before that, the Cleveland street scandal. Pedogate Primer is a concise intro and overview of a growing child abuse epidemic worldwide. It features shocking instances of institutionalized and organizational pedophilia throughout history. Churches, cults, the world of arts and entertainment, the government, NGOs, charities, and major corporations are all complicit or culprits in many instances. Pedogate Primer delves into material that for many may seem like the stuff of conspiracy theories. For this reason, the book draws on academic resources, declassified documents, and other reliable sources, and steers clear of conjecture. Such shocking true stories need no embellishment.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. I pronounce it well, Kirikawa. Oh yeah, that's right. You're what do you call it? Greek, right? I think he's Greek too. And he might be Hawaiian though. Listen, I don't know. I'm talking about John Kirikawa, the spy, former CIA agent, whose name comes up again in this story later on. So now this book launch party, right, with all these kind of guys, these hustlers and operatives, political guys. Private investigators and, guys that are police commissioners and former mayors. I've been to these kind of things, and everyone's hustling, everybody's drinking. Everybody's trying to advance their own personal gain. Now, one of these characters, I hate to say it, but I was one of those characters too. I still am in a lot of ways. So one of these characters at this book launch party, and by the way, I don't even think, I'll move on. One of the characters at this party, okay, is Dr. Keith Ablow's brother. Because Keith Ablow was a right-wing guy, Trump supporter. But Keith Ablow's brother shows up at this party. And he's working the room. And somehow, we know for a fact, it comes to the attention of Bo Dietl and Brad Birkenfeld that Keith Ablow has possession of a Hunter Biden laptop. And they want to monetize a quote from Mr. Birkenfeld. And by the way, you can hear everything I'm saying to you, you can hear from Mr. Birkenfeld's own mouth. Because I had him on as a guest on my show, and he tells the story. Just got to go to Patreon, pay $3, and you can listen to it. Okay? Or I'll put it up for free in a couple of weeks. Everybody's crying about having to pay for a couple of bucks. Okay? All right? That doesn't matter all the crap I have to go through. That my phone number is being changed. Okay, back in Vegas, right? Back in the early 2000s when I first showed up in Vegas, organized crime controlled the escort service business out there. The yellow pages in Vegas used to be like 5 inches thick because of all the escort services and massage outcalls that they used to have. And it was run by one particular organized crime family, which will remain nameless as long as I'm able to walk the streets. Okay. So if someone new came to town and says, hey, this is a good business. I want to start an escort service here in Las Vegas. And they got a phone number and they put a $10,000 ad in the yellow pages, full page ad. These organized crime guys had a way of having all their phone calls going to their business forwarded to their own business, okay? Because they had guys inside the phone company that could do this kind of thing for them. And plus, there's a lot of blackmailing stuff that goes on and intelligence services involved and escorts and madams and those kind of things. But anyway, let's move on. By the way, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Opperman Report. And I think we have a way soon coming up, too, where we can play the shows on Instagram, that there'll be a link there that you can click on and listen to the show, either live or an archive. So we're working on that right now. So Keith Ablow's brother wants to monetize Hunter Biden's laptop. And he comes up with a figure of $2 million. He wants $2 million for the Hunter Biden laptop. Now, that tells me, because you know me, I'm around these kind of deals, people buying and selling information and videos and, evidence and things. I've seen this before. So, and it's easy to have to come up with something that's pretty damn good, I said, boy, I think this thing is worth $1 million, right? Let me start shopping this around to see who wants it. And then you get offers of peanuts, right? And I got some good stuff out there too, man. But the offers of peanuts, and then people get bought up and they get silenced, and then I'm stuck because, I have a client that I can't talk about. So, there's a lot of problems between being a PI and being a reporter at the same time. It's a tightrope. But the people who were in possession of this laptop said, hey, man, there's a tornado. There's a hurricane in this laptop, and it's worth $2 million. And if you see the stuff that came out in the Hunter Biden laptop, there's emails, all kind of bribery and shenanigans going on. There's all kinds of sexual activity with prostitutes, drug use, all kinds of stuff that you'd think could take down a candidate's. If this is your son who's making his living peddling your name around the world, that could swing an election, would be worth $2 million. Okay? So somehow the decision was made, as described to me by Mr. Brad Birkenfeld, to go down there and negotiate with Keith Ablow, Dr. Keith Ablow, and get this laptop. So now when I hear this story and I see Birkenfeld's name come up, Birkenfeld has a book out. So I contact him. I said, Mr. Birkenfeld, I love your book. I want to have you come on the show. And we can promote your book and sell your book. Lucifer's Banker. What a fascinating story. You're living in Malta, Mr. Birkenfeld? I'm like, how'd you wind up in Malta? Okay. And I've told this before. I'll have guests on this show, man, because I'm working on something behind the scenes, and I'll have a guest on this show. I got one question I want to ask them, and I want to get an answer to. I had one once, right? I had the guy on, Mr. Michael Blutrich, who used to own Scores. I was working on something. A lot of people figured out what it was by now. But I can't talk about it, I was working on something, and I needed some information from somebody who had inside information at Scores. So I invite Blutrich on my show. By the way, Blutrich was law partners with the Cuomo family, with the Cuomo brothers. Okay, Andrew and God, Zeus, it's been so short that they've both been knocked off the public stage, so quickly. But they should have been knocked over for their connection to Blutrich. When I had Blutrich on the show, who was an informant who turned on these organized crime guys that were running Scores, I started getting all these phone calls and emails. Ed, that guy Blutrich, man, he's a pedophile. He's a baby raper. He's a kid. He used to bring kids with him into Scores. This guy's no good. But I thought these were guys with bitter grapes, sour grapes, and were mad at Blutrich because he made a deal against organized crime. Because these all organized crime guys coming to me. So I took it with a grain of salt. But then I started getting in contact with people that were literally abused by Blutrich. They were telling me they were abused by Blutrich, and I put them in touch with some attorneys. And, I'm assuming they settled. And no one's thanked me for it, but it seems that they were. The point of that story is, okay, by the way, everyone knew Blutrich was a pedophile, child rapist. Molesting kids. He was part of some kind of a group like the YMCA, but it was like a Jewish one, He was like the director of, snatching these kids up, these troubled kids. And everyone knew, man, and there's a lot to go on. till later on, after he became a rat. Then it became open season on him. So my point is, though, I'll have a guest on my show just to ask them one question because I'm working on something else. A lot of times people wonder, well, Ed, why didn't you ask tougher questions to this guest? I got reasons. I have the reasons why I do things. And I'm letting you know. So I invite Blutrich on the show. And he tells me, yep, I had my book signing party. And Keith Ablow's brother approaches us. He wants to monetize the laptop for $2 million. So me and Bo Dietl fly down to, Bo's a tough guy. If you watch the movie Bad Lieutenant with Harvey Keitel, that's the Bo Dietl story. Okay? And anyway. This telling you this story doesn't benefit me. It kind of harms me and brings problems to me. So, it's not like I tell you the story because, it's a Trump derangement syndrome. He hates Trump. Because all these guys, I know all these guys, they could help my career if I wasn't reporting the truth to you. Now, that doesn't mean I'm any kind of friend of Hunter Biden or Joe Biden. Of course not. These guys are criminals, too. I mean, just as perverted and criminal as the other side, in my opinion. In some ways, worse. Okay? I'm just telling you what the facts are, man. I got no dog in this, man. And the only dog I have is the dog I'm losing. So, Hunter, race or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, Bo Dietl, according to Mr. Birkenfeld, who was there, and Birkenfeld go down there, they knock on Mr. Ablow's door. Okay, somehow they did negotiating over this laptop, $2 million. It's a lot of money. Nobody wants to part with that much money. Although Bo gambles away that much money in one night. I can't tell you that. Okay, notorious. But they're negotiating over the sale of this laptop, and negotiations fall through. They leave empty-handed without the laptop. Sad day for democracy. Sad day for the Trump campaign. Well, what do we do now? Here we had this great evidence that could flip a campaign. And negotiations break down. We can't get it. Because we don't want to pay $2 million. There's got to be a way to get that for free. Or less than $2 million. And wouldn't you know it, it's like a Christmas miracle. It's like a Christmas miracle. But the next day, I guess, Bo and Birkenfeld are on a plane back to wherever they're from. But the next day, who comes knocking at the door this time? They don't come knocking. They come kicking. The Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, comes kicking in the doors. I don't know if they kicked in the doors or knocked in, but somehow they got in. They got a search warrant. A judge decided on this particular day, when all the stars aligned, okay, when the negotiations fell through, a judge signs a search warrant for the home of Keith Ablow to go in there and take everything that could possibly incriminate Mr. Ablow. They went to a pharmacist nearby, too. Because, by the way, too, what happened was when I did all this investigation and I put together these lawyers, my client, they merged with another couple of victims of Ablow who were actually living there in Massachusetts, and he was giving them drugs from this pharmacy. But I got the ball rolling on that whole thing. So when I tell you how, I'm personally involved in this, and I have reported on this previously exclusively from people personally 100% directly involved in the chain of custody on that laptop. So the next day, the DEA comes in and they take possession of the laptop. Now they got it. Okay? And this time, unlike the computer repair place, Biden springs into action. Hunter Biden springs into action with a law firm, lawyer, and they get their laptop back in one piece. And Birkenfeld remarks, well, I think, and it's really easy to do this, I think that they took the content of that. Someone in the DEA must have done this. They must have my phones tapped. And they got that laptop and they put it on the laptop that was at the computer repair place. And if you look at the timeline of all this, it all makes sense because even Steve Bannon, and if you can look up Steve Bannon porn and meth house, Google that, you'll find the Opperman report on that story exclusively. That was then ultimately reported on Morning Joe Scarborough. And Birkenfeld said, well, yeah, someone in the DEA, darn, must have somehow pulled this off. He says to me with a straight face. And I ask him, well, gee whiz, if there's someone who can get to a judge, wouldn't that be like someone like a Bo or Giuliani could get to a judge, DEA, to decide a warrant? Listen, wouldn't they be the guys who can pull this off? Guys at the highest level of law enforcement and Department of Justice prosecution. Oh, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. You got to listen to it. You got to listen to the interview. Okay? But anybody looking at this with any kind of modicum of awareness or savvy in the world and experience and life experience would see that, okay, there's a negotiation for a laptop. It falls through. And the next day, the cops show up and, pick it up. And one of the guys negotiating is a former NYPD cop on behalf of the former SDNY prosecutor, Rudy Giuliani. On behalf of the former NYPD police commissioner, Bernard Kirikow, on behalf of this crew of guys. Now, later on, Kirikow comes forward and he says, you know what, man, they wanted to give me a pardon for my case there when I was convicted for being a whistleblower so I could get my CIA pension back. And they put the price tag on that at $2 million. And the guy who offered that deal to him, after a bunch of drinks at a table one night. We don't know what night this was. I'm trying to get Kirikow to come back on it, but I think the jig is up on Ed Opperman spilling the beans on his story here. I think the cat's out of the bag. And I've gotten as much traction out of this as I can. But it would seem to me that if I'm, we're at this book signing party, this book launching party, we're looking around the table to say, well, how can we get this laptop? Well, here we got a CIA guy here, he's combat savvy, he's been to jail, Hey, Kirikow, can you go in there? Can you go in there and get that laptop? B&E job, you're going to have some guys, you go in there and get this. This is, by the way, this is all my speculation. I'm not making any kind of quoting here. Can you get us this laptop? If you get us this laptop, it's worth $2 million. We'll give you a pardon. We'll get your pardon through Trump. Okay? Well, we need a laptop. Can you do it for us? Tunnel in there? With a El Chapo tunnel, Can you do that for us? None of this is beyond my experience or what I've seen go down and things in real life with tapes and evidence and all kinds of stuff. This is all what happens in real life. And that, my friends, is the real story of the chain of custody of the Hunter Biden laptop and my personal firsthand involvement, every inch of my firsthand personal involvement in that story. So you can't say to me that I've never reported on it. Now, we're out of time, so we can't get into the whole, oh my goodness, this Playboy, these revelations we're seeing on these Playboy documentaries about Hefner and all his behavior and his activities and his tunnels. Okay, what I'll tell you this is, I had a guest on the show. We asked her about tunnels underneath the mansion there. She said, well, I was a little kid. I lived there. We looked for these tunnels. Subsequent to that, we had some potential litigation where I was vetting out some clients. We did a lot of work on all this, man. There's nothing that came out in this documentary that I haven't known about or that really wasn't reported in my very little. And by the way, the stuff that I know is a lot worse in this documentary. There are things that went on there that are a lot worse than has been publicly disclosed, okay? And it would be a major lawsuit, but the plaintiff in the case does not identify as a victim and does not want to move forward in that role to receive compensation for the abuse and trauma that potential plaintiff has suffered. Okay, I think I've covered everything. Since we've started the show, I've been contacted by a whole bunch of folks involved in this whole Steve Avery thing. They're all, I don't know what they're doing, cheering me on or trying to negotiate. I don't know what's going on here. But hopefully we'll have some shows with some people firsthand involvement with the Steve Avery and these photographs that you can find at the Opperman Report Patreon in the free public section. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that don't quite understand what free and public means, and they think you have to pay for it because it's Patreon. But no, this is a free section that's free. That means you don't have to pay, and it's public. Free to the public means that anybody can go there and read this and see this without signing up or giving me any information or me hacking into your computer or trying to make money off you. Okay, this is legitimate news reporting. We have here some very serious photographs. We have here people that, by the way, just imagine this, man. Just imagine this. Let's say this whole fantasy about Stephen Avery being set up by these cops over there, making a murderer, and he were to receive this settlement for his wrongful conviction. Wouldn't these victims, these young child victims, then have great lawsuits against Stephen Avery to take just about every penny he made from that away from him and put it in their pockets instead of his pockets? I think so. And I think I know a little bit about how these things work. Okay. Good night. I don't know what's coming up next tonight. I haven't even looked through the list of shows. And it's been a rough couple of weeks with this Miami trip. And I'm going through a kind of a constant barrage of sabotage and, that kind of real serious kind of sabotage that I go through every now and then, where people are changing my phone number and I'm logging into my computer and all the settings are changed, normal things that should be simple, become difficult. So I have kind of a little bit of a rough time here. So I'll go back and look what will be the new shows tonight. We did a great show with Shane McKay and his buddy there, Mr. Sneed, where I interviewed them about their excellent podcast, which you can find on Spreaker. It's called Can. It's not in front of me right now. Sorry, Shane. But you can find it because they comment a lot on my Twitter. You can find it there. By the way, you can find these Stephen Avery photos too on my Twitter and my Instagram at Opperman Report. So thank you so much, guys. I'll see you next week. If you want to support the show, be sure and check out Patreon. Become a Patreon member. Get the show. All the content you hear on AM/FM radio Monday to Friday, you get it for $3 a month with ad-free. No ads whatsoever. Plus, I'm constantly putting up a ton of free content up there, too, in the free section. So good night, guys, and I'll talk to you next week. And now a word from our sponsors.
Before Epstein was the Franklin cover-up. Before that, the Finders. And long before that, the Cleveland Street Scandal. Pedogate Primer is a concise intro and overview of a growing child abuse epidemic worldwide. It features shocking instances of institutionalized and organizational pedophilia throughout history. Churches, cults, the world of arts and entertainment, the government, NGOs, charities, and major corporations are all complicit or culprits in many instances. Pedogate Primer delves into material that for many may seem like the stuff of conspiracy theories. For this reason, the book draws on academic resources, declassified documents, and other reliable sources, and steers clear of conjecture. Such shocking true stories need no embellishment.
If you find yourself in need of legal representation, it can be a very stressful time in your life. In my career, I have dealt with thousands of lawyers, I've dealt with thousands of law firms, and I can confidently recommend to you Keith M. Davidson at kmdlaw.com. Available 24 hours, 7 days a week. Just log into kmdlaw.com. That's kmdlaw.com. Or you can call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. That's 833-4KMD-LAW. Personal injury, wrongful death, STDs, sexual assault, car accidents, They handle it all efficiently and professionally. It doesn't matter how imposing the opposition may be, because the team at KMDlaw.com are battle-tested and fierce. They will not stop until justice prevails. Go to KMDlaw.com or call toll-free 833-4KMD-LAW. If you're in for the fight of your life, stop screwing around and contact KMD Law. The Opperman Report is brought to you by Aquadam.net. You can give them a call at 707-764-2119. A flooded home is never easy to deal with. You're left with the mess to clean up, the insurance companies to deal with, and not to mention all the memories, the precious memories that are lost in the flood. You can never replace those. And Aquadam can be a tool in your arsenal to protect your home and property from the floodwaters. The cofferdam is filled with water to control water and is reusable as long as it's taken care of. It can protect your home or business from rising floodwaters like a dam, but without the beavers. It can also be used in construction. If you need an area to be dewatered, an Aquadam can do the job. An Aquadam was used at SeaWorld in Orlando for the Mako roller coaster ride during the coaster's construction by dewatering the work area. An Aquadam is now dewatering the work area at San Antonio SeaWorld for their newest roller coaster ride. An Aquadam has been used in many construction projects all around the U.S. and all around the world. Now give Aquadam a call, 707-764-2119. You can look them up online at aquadam.net. You can find them on Facebook at Aquadam Inc. You call them up, you email them, you tell them Ed Opperman sent you, and they're going to take 10% off the price. Aquadam.net, 707-764-2119.